The world of Alastair Finch was one of polished surfaces and unassailable silence. His office, a penthouse eyrie perched 50 stories above the teeming city, was a monument to his own success. The air hummed with the quiet power of climate control, and the floor-to-ceiling windows presented a panoramic, emotionless view of a world he commanded. As CEO of Viridian Dynamics, a behemoth that consumed smaller tech companies with the casual indifference of a whale filtering plankton, Alastair had perfected the art of emotional detachment. His heart, colleagues whispered, was not made of flesh but of the same cold, efficient circuitry that powered his empire. His desk was a vast expanse of obsidian, clear but for a single tablet and a sealed envelope. The envelope was an anomaly. It was not the crisp, professional stationery of business, but a small, pink rectangle, slightly crumpled, addressed in a looping, childish script. It had been passed through a chain of bewildered assistants, from his secretary to his chief of staff, each too intimidated to question its journey to the sacred space of his desk. The return address was the Sunshine Wing of the St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Alastair's first instinct had been to discard it. Charity cases were handled by a dedicated department, they were line items on a spreadsheet, not personal appeals. But something about its sheer incongruity, its brazen vulnerability on his fortress-like desk, had stayed his hand. For 3 days, it lay there, a silent, pink reproach. Finally, with a sigh of irritation, he slid it open. The letter inside was a single sheet of lined paper. "Dear Mr. Finch," it began. "My name is Lily. I am 7 years old. I live in the hospital. My doctor says I have a sickness that makes the stars go out inside me. I'm not scared of the dark, but I'm scared no one will remember me. My mommy showed me a picture of your big, glass castle in the sky. She said you are the most important man in the city. Can you do something important for me? I made a list. It's my very important list. Can you read it? It's very important." Beneath the signature, which was accompanied by a lopsided drawing of a smiling sun, was a list numbered 1 through 5. Only the first item was written out: 1. Tell my mommy it's not her fault. She cries when she thinks I'm sleeping. The remaining 4 were blank spaces, as if waiting for a promise to be filled. Alastair Finch, the man who had stared down hostile takeovers and market crashes without a flicker of fear, felt a profound and unsettling shift within him. The air in his perfect office suddenly seemed thin. The cityscape outside, a testament to his control, now looked like a circuit board of anonymous lives. The letter was a tiny, fragile pebble, but it had just been dropped into the still pond of his existence, and the ripples were beginning to touch shores he had long forgotten. He carefully folded the letter, the paper feeling impossibly delicate in his large, capable hands, and placed it back in the envelope. He did not throw it away. He put it in the inner pocket of his tailored suit jacket, directly over his heart. The gesture was unconscious, but its significance was absolute. The Sunshine Wing was a universe away from Alastair Finch's world of glass and steel. The air here was a complex cocktail of antiseptic, floor wax, and the underlying, sweet-sour scent of human frailty. The walls were cheerfully painted with cartoon animals, but the effort felt like a thin coat of paint over a profound and aching sadness. Alastair moved through the corridors, his expensive shoes squeaking on the linoleum, his imposing frame feeling clumsy and out of place among the 4 poles and small, shuffling patients. He had come under the guise of a corporate goodwill visit, a scheduled tour with the hospital director. But his eyes were not on the facilities, they were searching for a room number given to him by a sympathetic nurse. He found it, 307. The door was ajar, and through the opening, he saw her. Lily. She was a tiny figure in a vast bed, dwarfed by pillows and tethered to a silent monitor that traced the fragile rhythm of her heart. Her head was bald, a delicate scalp revealed under the soft light, and her skin was pale as parchment. But her eyes, when they turned to the door and met his, were immense, two pools of luminous, untarnished blue. He had expected weakness, but her gaze held a quiet, unnerving strength. She didn't smile, only watched him as he entered, the hospital director fluttering nervously behind him. Alistair dismissed the man with a quiet word, the command in his voice leaving no room for argument. Alone in the doorway, the titan of industry and the dying child regarded one another. He approached the bed, the letter feeling like a lead weight in his pocket. He didn't need to introduce himself. She knew. "You got my letter," she said, her voice a whisper of air, yet it filled the room. He simply nodded, unable to form words. He saw a woman, haggard and worn, asleep in a chair in the corner, one hand resting protectively on the bed. Lily's mother. The weight of the first item on the list pressed down on him. "Tell my mommy it's not her fault." Lily's small hand, trailing a tangle of tubes, gestured to a small, wooden box on her bedside table. It was decorated with stickers of stars and planets. "My list is in there," she whispered. "But you have to promise. You have to do them with me. Not after." Alistair Finch, who made promises in binding legal contracts worth billions, found himself making the most significant vow of his life with a single, solemn nod. He was no longer a dispassionate benefactor. He had become an unwilling pilgrim, sworn to the service of a little girl's final wish. He opened the box. Inside, on a piece of construction paper, was the list. The 4 blank lines seemed to accuse him of his previous emptiness. He was there to help her fill them in. Sitting in his penthouse that evening, Alistair stared at the list, now pinned to his obsidian desk with a heavy, crystal paperweight. It was no longer a piece of childish scribble, it was a blueprint, a sacred document. Lily, with his hesitant prompting, had filled in the remaining 3 wishes. The list now read: "Tell my mommy it's not her fault. Build a castle, a real one, just for one day. Find a home for Whiskers. He's the ginger one in the shelter on 5th. Make a star say my name. Make Mr. Finch smile a real smile. A real on." The simplicity of the wishes was disarming, yet their fulfillment required a dismantling of his entire worldview. The first item was a task of emotional archaeology, digging through layers of a mother's grief to deliver an absolution he wasn't sure she would believe. The second was a logistical fantasy, a demand for magic in a world of bottom lines. The third was a small act of kindness that felt, paradoxically, immense. The fourth was an impossible poetic gesture. And the fifth was the most terrifying of all, for it demanded he breach the deepest fortress of his own soul. He started with what he understood, logistics and command. He summoned his executive assistant, a woman named Anya whose efficiency was legendary. Her usual tasks involved mergers and acquisitions. Today, her mandate was different. "Anya," he said, his voice stripped of its usual corporate cadence. "I need you to source every Fostone building block, every cardboard turret, every banner and child-safe building material in the state. I want a castle erected in the hospital's private garden. 12 feet high, at least. In 48 hours. Anya's eyes widened for a fraction of a second before her professional mask slid back into place. "Yes, Mr. Finch." Next, he dispatched a junior executive to the animal shelter on 5th Avenue with a single, bizarre instruction: secure the ginger cat. Name of Whiskers. Ensure he goes to a pre-vetted, loving family. Report back with photographic evidence. He then contacted the head of Viridian's R&D lab, a team that worked on cutting-edge astrophysics data modeling. Their new assignment was cryptic. "I need an algorithm," he told the bewildered chief scientist, "that can project a name, Lily, into the night sky. Use drones, lasers, augmented reality. I don't care about the method. The effect must be that when one looks up, it appears a star is spelling her name." Finally, alone again, he was left with the first and last items. He practiced in the mirror, a contortion of his facial muscles that was a ghastly mockery of joy. He looked like a pained gargoyle. The real smile, the one she demanded, felt like a relic from a self he had buried long ago. And the mother's grief was a chasm he had no idea how to bridge. He was building castles and programming stars, but the human tasks felt like the most impossible ones of all. 2 days later, the hospital garden was transformed. Under Anya's relentless direction, a team of builders and volunteers had constructed a magnificent, if temporary, castle. It was made of foam bricks and heavy-duty cardboard, but it was painted a convincing grey, with bright blue flags flying from its 4 turrets. It was not a full-scale fortress, but for a child, it was a palace of dreams. Lily was brought down in a wheelchair, bundled in blankets. Her mother, Eleanor, walked beside her, her face a mask of confusion and a fragile, burgeoning hope. When Lily saw the castle, her gasp was not loud, but it seemed to suck all the sound from the garden. The luminous blue eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of pure, unadulterated wonder. "Can I go in?" she whispered. Alistair, who had been standing stiffly to the side, found himself kneeling beside her chair. "It's your castle, Lily. You are the queen." He pushed her wheelchair through the arched entrance. Inside, the great hall was strewn with plush cushions and, in a moment of inspired genius from Anya, 1,000 fairy lights twinkled from the ceiling, mimicking the night sky. For one afternoon, the sterile hospital world fell away. Lily, with the strength that seemed to flow from the castle itself, insisted on getting out of her chair and sitting on a cushioned throne. Alistair, the CEO, sat cross-legged on the floor at her feet. It was here, in this cardboard citadel, that he fulfilled the first wish. He looked at Eleanor, who was watching her daughter with a heartbroken smile. "Eleanor," he said, his voice low but clear. "Lily asked me to tell you. It's not your fault." The woman's composure shattered. A sob racked her frame, and she covered her face with her hands. But after a moment, she looked up, her eyes meeting Alistair's, and she gave a slow, tear-filled nod. It was not an instant healing, but a burden shared, a stone lifted from a drowning heart. In that moment, Alistair felt a strange, warm sensation in his chest. He wasn't solving a problem or closing a deal. He was mending a tiny, broken piece of the world. Later, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a junior executive arrived, looking profoundly out of place in his business suit. He handed Alistair his phone. On the screen was a picture of a ginger cat purring contentedly in the lap of a smiling elderly woman in a sun-drenched living room. Alistair showed it to Lily. "Whiskers has a new home," he said. Lily looked at the picture, then up at Alistair. Her small, pale hand found his large, steady one. She gave his fingers a gentle squeeze. "Thank you," she said. And then she smiled at him, a radiant, sun-like smile that held no trace of the darkness that sought to claim her. And without thought, without effort, Alistair Finch smiled back. It was a small, tentative thing at first, but it reached his eyes, crinkling the corners and warming his features. It was a real smile. The night was cold and clear, a perfect canvas for the city's light-polluted heavens. From the roof of the hospital, the view of the actual stars was faint, but that was of no consequence. Lily was there, wrapped in so many blankets she was almost spherical, her wheelchair positioned at the center of the helipad. Eleanor stood on one side, Alistair on the other. He had received the confirmation an hour earlier. The R&D team, after initial bafflement, had performed a miracle of their own. Using a coordinated swarm of high-altitude drones equipped with pinpoint lights, they had created a new, temporary star in the constellation of Cassiopeia. "It's time," Alistair said softly into his phone. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, high above them, one of the faint, steady points of light in the W-shaped constellation began to pulse. It was a subtle, soft rhythm, not a garish flash. It pulsed once, twice, a third time, and then, in a series of precise, luminous dots, it spelled out a word against the velvet dark, Lily. It held for a breathtaking 5 seconds, then faded back to its steady state, before pulsing the name out once more. Lily's head, which had been leaning weakly against the chair, lifted. Her eyes, reflecting the man-made star, shone with a light that seemed to come from another, purer source. She didn't speak. She simply watched, her breath forming small plumes in the cold air, as the sky, her sky, whispered her name over and over again. "It sees you, Lily," Alistair murmured, his own throat tight with an emotion he could not name. "The universe sees you." It was the ultimate act of witnessing. He had built her a castle to make her a queen for a day, but he had commanded the heavens to affirm her existence, to tell her that she mattered, that her brief, bright life was noted in the cosmic ledger. She was no longer just a little girl in a hospital room, she was a name written in light, a story told by the stars themselves. When they finally took her back inside, she was silent, wrapped in a cocoon of awe. Back in her room, as the nurses settled her into bed, she held onto Alistair's hand with a surprising strength. "You did it," she whispered. "All of it." He nodded, looking down at their joined hands, his, large and capable of building empires, hers, small and capable of shattering them. He had fulfilled every item on the list. The mission was complete. But as he looked at her peaceful, exhausted face, he knew with a terrifying certainty that it wasn't over. His work for her was done, but her work on him had only just begun. Lily passed away quietly 3 days later. She fell asleep in the cardboard castle, which Alistair had, through a substantial donation, been allowed to keep standing for her, and did not wake up. Her final moments were spent in a realm of her own creation, a queen in a fortress of dreams.